You know, there are some songs that just echo through history, songs that mark a real turning point. For over 1,400 years, one of the most beloved has got to be Tala'a Al-Badru Alayna. It's this beautiful song of pure joy. You hear it at celebrations, but behind those famous words is a much, much deeper story. A story of hope, desperation, and, well, perfect timing.
The full moon has risen over us. Just let that sink in. It's so poetic and beautiful, and it's really at the heart of everything we're about to explore. This one line, it captures this profound moment where hope finally arrives after a long, long dark night. And it's not just poetry. For the people who first sang it, it was their reality.
So that's the big question, right? Why this song? How did the arrival of just one man, the Prophet Muhammad, spark such a spontaneous and lasting explosion of joy? Well, to really understand the light, we first have to understand the darkness it shattered.
See, the story of this song is born from a moment of crisis, and I don't mean just one crisis, but two, both pressing in on two different groups of people whose faiths were about to become completely intertwined.
So, on one side, you've got the early Muslims in Mecca. They were facing years of absolutely brutal persecution, which forced them to make the Hijra, a really dangerous journey north, literally just to survive. And then on the other side, you have the city they were running to, Yathrib, which we now know as Medina. And this city, well, it was tearing itself apart, locked in a bloody civil war that had been raging for 120 years.
I mean, you have to picture it. The two main tribes, the Aus and Khazraj, they were just stuck in this bloody cycle. The Battle of Bu'ath, which had happened just a few years earlier, was a total catastrophe. Pretty much every single family had lost someone. They were broken, they were fractured, and they were desperate, truly desperate for a leader who could rise above the bitter tribal politics and finally end the cycle of revenge.
Now, here's where the story gets really interesting. The Prophet's arrival in Medina, it wasn't a coincidence at all. It wasn't just some refugee luckily finding a safe place to land. No, this was the culmination of years, even generations of careful groundwork, and, you could say, divine preparation.
It all came together because of four key factors that made Medina uniquely ready for this moment. First, they'd been hearing prophecies for generations. Second, they were desperate for a unifier. Third, they went and gave a formal invitation. And finally, the message of Islam had already been taught there for a full year before the Prophet even showed up. Let's break each of those down.
This part of the story is just fascinating. Medina was home to several very learned Jewish tribes who had been talking for a long, long time about a final prophet that was foretold in their scriptures. So the idea of a messenger of God, it wasn't new or shocking to the Arab tribes there. It was actually something they had grown up hearing about.
And this wasn't just, some casual conversation. During arguments, the Jewish tribes would actually issue this warning to the Arab tribes. This prophecy was used as a threat, which means it was well known and really deeply embedded in the city's psychology. So you can imagine, when a group from Medina first heard the prophet's message in Mecca, everything just clicked into place. They realized, wait a minute, this is the man they've been warning us about.
And that realization, it led to immediate action. The people of Medina didn't just sit around and wait, they actively went and invited him. It started with what's called the First Pledge of Aqaba, where a pretty small group made a moral commitment to the faith. But just 1 year later, things escalated dramatically with the Second Pledge. This time, 75 leaders from Medina showed up and offered a full political and military alliance, promising to protect the Prophet as if he were their own family.
After that first pledge, the Prophet sent one of his most gifted companions, a man named Musab ibn Umayr, to Medina. Musab was young, he was charismatic, a brilliant teacher. He actually came from one of the wealthiest families in Mecca, but had given it all up for his faith. His mission was simple: go house by house and prepare the people of Medina for what was coming.
And his mission? It was an unbelievable success. After a year of his patient teaching, this is the message he sent back to the Prophet. So by the time the Prophet actually made his journey, the city wasn't waiting for a stranger. They were waiting for a leader whose message had already found a home in pretty much every family.
Okay, so let's put all the pieces together. You have the prophecies, the total exhaustion from war, that formal invitation, the year of teaching. All of these threads were weaving together. The stage was absolutely set for one of the most moving moments in history.
News that he was getting close just spread like wildfire through the city. For days, the people of Medina, the Ansar, or the helpers, would go out to the edges of the city, out to the hot lava fields, and just wait under the sun, scanning the horizon for any sign of him.
And when that day finally came, the emotion was just overwhelming.
This wasn't just the arrival of some refugee. This was the fulfillment of everything they had been told, everything they'd hoped for, everything they had pledged their lives to. And this is why the metaphor of a full moon was just so perfect.
This was the thought. This was the deep collective feeling that just rippled through the crowd. This is what made women and children climb onto the rooftops, beat their drums, and just spontaneously sing the words that would become immortal. It was an absolute eruption of pure relief and joy.
So why a full moon, a Badr? Well, in the desert, the full moon is everything. It's a symbol of perfection, of light. It's your guide in the pitch black, a source of safety when you're traveling. And get this, he literally arrived from the direction of the valleys of Wada, so the moon really did appear to rise over them from that very direction. It was both literal and just deeply, deeply symbolic. And that single moment, captured in that simple song, it marked the beginning of a whole new era. It wasn't just a welcome, it was the birth of a community, the foundation of a new civilization, and a legacy that, well, it continues to this day.
I mean, just think about the legacy here. This is considered the very first devotional song, or nasheed, in Islamic history. It wasn't written by a committee. It was a pure, spontaneous expression of love. It has been sung continuously for over 14 centuries, and it marks the beginning of the Islamic calendar and the very first true Islamic community.
So the next time you hear Tala'a Al-Badru Alayna, just remember what it really represents. It's the sound of a city that was broken by war finally finding its peace. It's the sound of a persecuted people finding a home. It's the sound of prophecy fulfilled. It was an emotional exhale, a collective sigh of relief that the long dark night was finally over and the moon had risen.
You know, the power of this story is its universal message of hope. And it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What moments in our own lives, big or small, have felt like that? A moment where after a long period of struggle, of just waiting in the dark, the light that you had been praying for finally appeared on the horizon.